In episode 9, Serena is running with Noah in the streets of Boston, having no idea where exactly to go as she starts hearing bombs going off in the distance, and she gets scared. She gets even more terrified when she overhears a commotion and she sees a handmaid killing a wife. Serena's not sure what exactly is going on, but she is scared. She heads to the one person she knows that can probably protect her, and that is Joseph Lawrence, who knows exactly what is going on. She knocks on the door, and immediately Joseph lets her in. And Naomi, who is woken up at this point, has a ton of questions, i.e., why aren't you with your husband? And Serena tells her, I left him tonight, which comes as a big surprise to Naomi, but Serena didn't come here to talk to Naomi. Serena came here to talk to Joseph. She starts explaining about the bombs and the murder that she witnessed, and Joseph just says, yeah, it's not safe right now. There's a rebellion going on. And boy, is there ever a rebellion going on. June, Moira, the rest of the handmaids, they all get into a truck, and the plan is to get most of those handmaids to the border so they could cross over to Canada and be free. As for June and Moira, though, they're sticking around. They're going to continue the fight. And that's a big surprise to Janine, but she decides, you know what, I'm sticking around too. Because my daughter's here, and I want to be with my daughter. The other person that is with them is Aunt Phoebe, who tells June, I'm Ava. That's her real name. And so far, the plan is going great. They just have to make one final stop. But that's when the plan unravels. Because as they're waiting for more handmaids to join them at this stop, they get caught by the eyes. They bring out all of the handmaids, they line them up against the wall, and it looks like they're going to shoot them and kill them all, but they don't. They simply say, where is June Osborne? And it takes a lot, but finally June comes forward and says, I'm here. She wasn't about to let them kill somebody in her name, so she stepped forward. And for the time being, it saves everybody, but they take June into custody. The next day, June and the rest of the handmaids are going to be sentenced to death. They're going to hang for what they did. And as the girls wait for their fate, the man who will be the executioner, Commander Wharton, has to go make good with his wife. Serena wakes up in the Lawrence household that day, and she gets a talking to from Naomi, who can't understand exactly why the handmaids rebelled. And Serena can't understand how Naomi can't understand. But eventually, Naomi just gets tired of hearing it and says, you know what, I'm tired of your liberal ways. You have to make good with your husband. And when Serena says, I don't know if I can, she tells her, well, you better, because he's here. And moments later, in walks Commander Wharton, talking to Commander Lawrence about how they need to figure out exactly what to do about these rebels to nip this in the bud. All the while, Commander Lawrence is playing dumb, acting like, yeah, okay, no, you're right, totally. As if he doesn't want the rebels to win. When Commander Wharton, though, sees Serena, he immediately starts apologizing for the night before. He apologizes for how he handled the situation, and she tells him it doesn't matter. I mean, you ruined your vows the moment you brought a handmaid in. So he decides to change. He tells her that he still wants to try to have a family with her, but he's going to do it without handmaids. He's going to appease to what she wants. And when she asks him, well, what happens if we can't have a family without handmaids? He gives some song and dance, biblical stuff. She seems to accept it, and all of a sudden, she's back on board as Mrs. Wharton. They then, however, get into what happened with all the commanders. He tells her how it was June Osborne who was behind drugging their wedding guests via the cake. In order to figure out exactly what they're going to do about this rebellion, though, he also tells her, I'm leaving for D.C. tonight via a plane at 7 p.m. with the other commanders. Before I leave, though, I have to go hang these women. And your friend, June, is going to be one of them. Justice will be served. And then he leaves. He leaves to go talk with June, who is in custody. One of the first questions she asks him is, okay, who figured it out? I mean, was it the wife? Was it the bride? Did she figure it out? But Commander Wharton says no. I'll tell you right now, though, she was betrayed. And he never does quite reveal exactly how he knew it was June Osborne behind all of it. But these two get into a disagreement with no real resolution. Commander Wharton lecturing her about how she turned her back on God and how God is disappointed, and June questioning how exactly he knows what God wants, what he thinks. The conversation is going nowhere. Commander Wharton tells her, the only reason I came here was to have you settle up with God, and that's only because my wife would want it that way. But June shakes her head and says, no, the God that I know, the God that Serena knows, she wouldn't want this. That God wants love. So, Commander, choose love. Be the man that Serena thought she was marrying. Be compassionate. That is what God would want. But that's not what Commander Wharton wants. And after hearing this last-ditch plea from June, he just shrugs her to the side and walks out. Before the public hanging, Commander Wharton arranges for all the commander's wives and their children to be taken to a safe location. This is going to include Commander Lawrence and his quasi-daughter, Charlotte/Angela. Commander Lawrence, along with the rest of the commanders, are going to meet beforehand, before their trip to D.C., but before he goes off, he is able to say goodbye to Naomi. More so, he wants to make sure Naomi is prepared to be a mother. Because when it comes to the loving and compassionate parent, it is definitely Joseph Lawrence. He's the fun one. He entertains her. He shows her love. Whereas Naomi, she's cold. So Joseph makes sure that Naomi has the proper stuff, coloring books, paper, all of that to distract his daughter. And then he's able to say goodbye to Charlotte, telling her that he loves her. And as her and Naomi walk off, you truly see how much Joseph Lawrence loves this little girl. Naomi and Charlotte are going to join the other wives and children, but one person who is not willing to go is Serena. She's going to stay put. And once Naomi and Charlotte do leave, it leaves Joseph and Serena to have a conversation about what's going to happen with June. Serena especially feels guilty because she knows that she wouldn't be there, and more importantly, Noah wouldn't be there if it wasn't for June and what she did. She doesn't want to see June die. Even after what June did at her wedding, she doesn't want this. But unfortunately, both her and Joseph know it's too late. There's nothing they can do. So all they can do is pray. And that's what they do. And not too far away, most of Gilead is watching as June Osborne is brought in front of them. Commander Wharton starts making a speech about what she did, the righteousness, all of that crap. But then a surprising familiar face arrives to get hanged, and it's Aunt Lydia. And June didn't see that coming. Aunt Lydia is going to join June, Ava, and the rest of the handmaids. He gives Aunt Lydia a chance to rectify her mistakes and make peace with the Lord. And at first, it seems like she's doing that. She asks for forgiveness for her girls because they didn't know what they had done. After all, they were prisoners to wicked and godless men. And that's when Commander Wharton gives a signal to put a noose around her neck. He then, though, stupidly allows June to do the exact same thing. And she basically follows suit. I mean, she starts giving a bunch of biblical nonsense. It seems like she's remorseful, but she's not. And she ends her prayer with screaming, "Don't let the bastards grind you down," until she's hung up. But she is actually hung up. I mean, her little legs are dangling. She's probably only got a minute before she stops breathing, but she's saved. Because in that crowd of people were Luke, Rita, and the rest of Mayday. They brought weapons, and they were prepared to fight back, and that's exactly what they did. Luke chucked a couple of grenades. The members of Mayday rushed the stage. They took out the eyes, the security. They caught everybody off guard. And Rita was able to get June down before she died. As June lay on the floor trying to gather her thoughts, collect her breath, she's able to see 4 United States planes fly in and throw bombs on Boston. Boston is officially under attack. It's just like how they drew it up. Mark and his team swoop in. They start looking for commanders, but they're not able to find any because most of them went off to have this pre-flight meeting. And one of the places that Mark looked was Commander Lawrence's house, where he finds Serena. He asks Serena if she knows where Commander Lawrence is, but she doesn't. And he says, "Okay, come with me. I'll get you a safe place, and I'll leave men here just in case Joseph comes back." But either way, this is a big win for the United States. And they take a tiny foothold in the city of Boston. And even though she almost died, it's not too long before June Osborne is joining Mark in HQ to find out what the next steps are. But she gets a surprise. Turns out Ava was pretending to be an aunt the entire time. She's actually CIA. Both Ava and Mark start debriefing June on exactly what is going on, but they do have an issue. they don't know where the other commanders are, the radical ones, the ones that they need to kill. And they know that if they don't kill them, they're going to lose. It's going to be another Chicago all over again. They're not going to win. They're not going to have a chance. June asks if they know where Joseph is, but Mark says, no, we don't. And then June asks him, well, do you have anybody else that might know? And Mark does. He tells her, yeah, Serena, she's across the street in protective custody. I think she knows more than she's letting on. And June knows if there's one person that can get Serena to talk, it might just be herself. So she heads over there. Initially, when she sits down, Serena is thrilled to see her alive. She never expected that. But it's not long before these two start another pissing contest about Gilead, throwing blame around. Although this argument is nipped in the bud pretty quickly because June knows she doesn't really have time for it, and she asks Serena, where are the commanders? But Serena plays dumb. She tells her, I don't know. I really don't. I can't tell you. And June asks her, you can't or you won't? And it's clear by Serena's face that the answer is she won't. June kind of shakes her head in disgust, telling her, I really thought you changed. I really did. But no, your words are hollow as usual. You haven't changed. And Serena takes exception to that. She tells her, no, I have changed. But what you're asking me to do? You're asking me to put a target on my husband's back. And June yells back at her, he is no different than the others. He might be worse. He's a tyrant. Do you realize he was going to string me up like I was nothing today? And that's the guy that you want Noah looking up to? That's the guy that you want raising Noah? That dude. That's the dude you're protecting right now? Come on, Serena. Get real. June pushes and pushes and pushes until finally she breaks through. She makes Serena realize that June's right. Commander Wharton is no different. In fact, he probably is worse. So that's when she gives up the information, that the commanders are flying out to D.C. at 7 p.m. June rushes back over across the street to let Mark know, but at this point, they've been joined by Joseph, who went back home. He was greeted by American soldiers, and he was brought to HQ. Finding out where the commanders are / where they were headed, that's part one. Killing them, that's going to be part two, and that's where Joseph can come in handy. Mark tells them that what they need Joseph to do is go on the plane that the commanders will be using to get to D.C. and put a bomb on it, and then leave. The bomb is going to be triggered by altitude, so when the jet reaches a certain altitude, the thing's going to go off, boom, they're all dead. And initially, Commander Lawrence just completely scoffs at this idea. First of all, he wasn't planning on going to D.C., as he told both June and Mark, I was benched for my radical ideas. They don't want me going. Second of all, I'm not James Bond. But Mark pleads with him. He tells Lawrence that if those men arrive in D.C., then all of what they did was for naught. This is the only way. They can't shoot the plane out of the sky because of the air zone. They've seen what Gilead's anti-aircraft missiles will do. The only way to take care of these commanders is an inside job. With Commander Lawrence on the fence about what exactly to do, June steps up and says, I'll come with you. I'll be your getaway driver. And that gets Joseph to agree to it. So both Joseph and June head over to the airport, arriving before the other commanders and hopefully sticking the bomb on, getting off, and escaping. But they're unable to. That's because the other commanders show up early. It was something that Commander Lawrence certainly wasn't expecting. And initially, the commanders question what Lawrence is doing there. But it's actually Commander Wharton who steps up and says, no, this is good. We need a unified front. Joseph, I'm happy to have you aboard. I'll see you on the plane. And it's at this point that Commander Lawrence realizes he's never going to see his daughter again. Because the only way to execute the mission is by Commander Lawrence staying on that plane. It's going to look way too suspicious if he walks off. He does think about it for a second, but then he starts walking up the steps to the aircraft. The last thing he does before he enters the plane is look over at June, who is hiding in the corner at this point. He kind of gives her a nod. He puts his hand on his heart, and then he heads in, knowing that he's heading to his death. But Commander Lawrence isn't the last commander on the plane. there's one more they're waiting for. It's new dad, Nick. Nick had been absent from all the meetings because Rose had gone into labor early thanks to complications via the cake. And it's because of the complications that Rose decided to use that to her advantage and reminds Nick, the woman that you're in love with did this. She put your baby at risk. So you need to choose. And it wasn't a hard decision for Nick. He decided to choose Gilead and God. When he first gets on the plane, he's congratulated by Commander Wharton and the other commanders on being a new dad. But then he sits next to Lawrence. He makes a snide comment about joining the winners, and Commander Lawrence says, yeah, I guess I had to do what I had to do. Nick, though, covertly asks him if June's okay. And Commander Lawrence says, you know her, can't keep a good woman down. And when Nick mentions how she tried to talk him out of all of this, tried to talk him into leaving, Commander Lawrence looks at him and says, you should have listened. As the plane is taking off, June is watching, mortified, knowing that the father of her baby and the man who had saved her so many times were probably minutes away from dying. And sure enough, she watches that plane go off in the distance, and boom, it explodes, killing all the commanders on board.
Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or